through the stories of the last days, it's been suggested, in fact it is, that we have, and indeed that we are, a receptacle, a cauldron, a container, a crucible that contains not only all the aspects of our own personal psyche, but all of the sacred characters, symbols and archetypes of all the ages. And if we dip into this crucible, we can find an understanding to every story. But there's also a possibility that we can find that in fact this crucible, this container, is in fact a well of infinite ingenuity, creativity, and wisdom. Now there are many stories that we can all remember and know from whatever culture it is that we come from, that tell the tales of the prince who saves the maiden or the princess. And there are far fewer stories of the princesses or the maidens who conversely save the prince. But in a time in which we find ourselves now, let's dive deep into this tale and see if we can not only arrive at a deep understanding of it, but put it in the context of where we are, who we are, and what we do. In a time long ago, in a place far away, there was a princess called Aisha. Now Aisha had a bulbul, a nightingale bird, that she kept in a carved ivory cage. And at night time the nightingale would warble her to sleep. But one night, after she in fact had fallen asleep but woke up and unable to return into that blissful state, she got up and went over to the cage and said, "Bulbul, my beloved Bulbul, sing for me, sing me to sleep, and allow me to go back to that enchanted land in which I found myself sometimes." But to her very great surprise, her nightingale, speaking in a human voice, said, "My princess, I cannot sing for you tonight. I am too sad. But if you will allow me out of this cage, I will tell you my story." So Aisha opened the door of the cage and allowed her beautiful bird to come and rest on her hand. And speaking to her, it told her its story. "I am a prince, and like many, many others, I have been transformed into a creature that is enslaved until the end of our lives, unless it can be that the magic powder that is kept under the bed of the Dev who transformed us can be brought to bring us back into our rightful form." Now Aisha was enthralled by the story. "Where? What is it? What can I do to help you?" And so the bird, the bulbul, said, "In fact, the dev, the demon, the ogre who has transformed us lives in the enchanted land in which you find yourself when you sleep. But if you can go there and retrieve some of that magic powder, then I could be restored to my rightful form." Aisha said, "Please, please, please sing me to sleep and let me go there. I will bring back some of the magic powder," because she was greatly enthralled as to what form this prince would take. But then before he began his warbling, he said, "Remember, when you go to this enchanted place and you follow the path and cross the river and go through the glass door, that is the chamber in which the dev sleeps and under whose bed lies the sack of magic powder. Remember, you must not eat or drink anything else, all myself and all others will be doomed to be cursed and kept enslaved for the rest of our lives." And then the nightingale began to sing, and very quickly Aisha found herself in deep sleep, and there, in that place, she was in the enchanted land, just as many times before she'd visited. But then she quickly found the path that led to the river that her nightingale had spoken of. But when she came to the river and looked in, there was a beautiful rainbow bird, fish that came to the surface of the water. And just as Aisha, in her thirst, it was a long journey, was about to drink, the rainbow fish said, "Remember, remember, do not eat or drink." So even with her thirst, she restrained from drinking from the flowing river. But she asked the fish, "How do you know?" And the fish said, "I am one of those enchanted beings, and we know." So Aisha crossed the river and came to the outer walls and gate of the citadel of this dev, this demon, this ogre. And soon she found herself inside and facing the glass door that led to the chamber of the dev. When she opened the door, there before her was a vast bed under which she could clearly see the large sack of magic powder. So getting down on her hands and knees, she crawled under the bed, and taking the handkerchief that she had in her pocket, she took some of the powder and tied it carefully in the corner of her kerchief. But then, just as she was about to leave, a thunderous sound came, the heavy footsteps of the great and ugly, gruesome dev. She quickly hid herself behind the sack of magic and the dove entered the room and came crashing down on the bed and was soon snoring deeply, allowing Aisha to crawl out from under the bed and make her way across the room and out the glass door. But as she came out of the door, a great dog with gnashing teeth began to chase her. And so she ran. It seemed that she was running forever, but finally she came and found herself back beside the river again, her shoes worn, her feet bloodied, hunger and thirst taking over her. But again the rainbow fish arose and warned her, do not drink. Remember what your beloved bird has told you. And so, refraining from drinking, she crossed the river, and in great weariness and exhaustion finally found herself back in that state of deep, deep sleep through which she'd entered that enchanted place. But when she awoke, she remembered, because there, in her pocket, was her kerchief, in the corner of which was the magic powder. So she quickly arose and went over and let her beloved bulbul out of its cage and sprinkled the powder on its feathers. Immediately, her beloved nightingale was restored into his human form, handsome, tall prince. She fainted away in a swoon, but soon found herself being brought back by a loved servant who had come into the room, with the prince fanning her as she awoke. Of course, we well know the end of this story. The prince and Aisha were wed, uniting together to beget many sons. Diving deep into our container, our crucible, our cauldron, that deep, deep, infinite well. But now in this moment, calling on those abilities that allow us to dip in to all the sacred symbols, characters, and archetypes, to bring us an understanding of the deep meaning of this story. What does it evoke for us? Not only an understanding of its meaning, but what it connotes for us in this time, the time of great change. The princess, having the ability, the fortitude, the ingenuity, the wisdom to attain that which is needed to bring about transformation. What does this story mean?